Welcome to the Celtic Myth Podshow, bringing the tales and stories of the ancient Celts to your fireside.
Episode 43, The Fostering of Pryderi.
Hello, I'm Gary.
And I'm Ruth.
Welcome to the show. We've got an amazing show for you today because it's the beginning of the story of Branwen.
Which is very sad. It's a very sad tragedy.
It is, and that's the second branch of the Mabinogion.
The first two episodes of this story are essentially a bridge between this story and the last story. Now, it's a bit confusing, but you'll get the idea once you hear it.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you anymore because otherwise we've ruined the story for you.
No spoilers.
No
spoilers.
I won't. But just to say, the first two, hang on with it. It'll all make sense if you keep listening.
And before we start, let's have some news and views. The first thing I'd like to say, really, is that we've got a new email address for the show.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The old Gary and Ruth at CelticMythPodshow.com email address was getting hacked so many times that we really can't, we've let it go.
Yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at CelticMythShow@gmail.com. That's CelticMythShow@gmail.com.
And of course, you can get in touch with us in all the normal places, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep, and all the links to those places are on the Contact Us page on our website. For those of you who are new to the show, welcome. And for those of you who are aware that we've been away for a little while, apologies. Life has got very, very busy. And that's one of the reasons why we're deciding to try and going to set up a Patreon page.
Yep. We're going to set up a Patreon page to support the Celtic Myth Pod Show, which will help us bring you regular shows. It will help us fund the equipment that's needed for the pod show, and it means we can go out and do interviews and recordings outside, which would be really exciting.
It will, won't it? It'll be different.
So, with that said, let's remind ourselves of what happened in the last story episode.
Okay.
Do know, it's not right for us to keep another man's son and heir. As a mother and noble woman yourself, think of the suffering that the poor Queen Rhiannon is going through.
You are right. Though it breaks my heart to say it, we should send the boy back to Pwyll.
When they were told that they could enter, Haroun led the party into the great hall. As he followed his father, Haroun, Uri sneaked sidelong looks at their noble host as he relaxed in his throne, next to the pale lady, Rhiannon. As they walked in, Pwyll stood, a broad smile spreading rapidly across his face, and his arms spread wide. And finally, he asked the boy to stand so that all could see him. He turned to Rhiannon then.
My lady, this is your son?
Cannot be.
Whoever told these falsehoods about you did you great wrong. When we heard of your fate and your punishment, I was deeply saddened, and I grieve. We came here immediately to bring your long-lost child back to you. I cannot imagine that anyone in this noble host can doubt that this boy is the son of Pwyll, Prince of Haroun.
It is true, no one can doubt it. I can hardly believe it. Before all the gods, I would be delivered of my worry if this is true.
I see the truth of it, lady. And you have named your son well, so Pryderi, son of Pwyll and Rhiannon, suits him very well indeed. A fine name for a youth, but as a man the name Pryderi shall better fit his fate. Thus shall the Druid Council be well satisfied with the boy.
has often been said that the oldest of trees have the strongest and thickest of branches. The 4 great mighty branches of the Mabinogi stretch long and proud from deep within the mists of history. The actors, in a play older than quill marks on ancient parchment, can still be seen living out their story on those ancient gnarled limbs. And yet, as we came to the end of our climb along the first branch of this mighty tree, and the story of Pwyll and Rhiannon was nearing its end, we caught a brief sight of their bright child, Pryderi. He was striding forward on the furthest twigs, slender and finger-like that grasp for tendrils of times to come, in the half-seen wispy strands of future past. We glimpsed a small part of the future life of this half-mortal, half-fey child of promise. We watched as the son of Pwyll and Rhiannon grew to be a fine leader. We dimly saw that as the years fell upon him like the whirling leaves fall in autumn, the young Pryderi took the mantle of the cantrevs of Dyfed upon his shoulders, and eventually chose the noble and beautiful Cigfa to be his bride. As unseen, silent observers, we notice a flash of bright movement on another mighty tree limb above us and to the north. And so it is that another branch on the great tree of the Mabinogi can be seen hosting its own play, and the actors are gathering for their roles, eager to speak their lines that will echo down throughout history, through us and on into the hearts of men not yet born. The running figure of the young 7-year-old Pryderi, all gangly legs and flailing arms, can be seen hurtling along the second branch towards his place in the new story, and the halls of Arberth echo to his young footsteps. The wise Druid Pendaran smiles at him with the wisdom of age and follows him at a more sedate pace towards the great hall. There sits the Lord Pwyll, the Prince of Dyfed, called by his people the Prince of Haroun, known as such for his friendship with the Grey Lord, Haroun, the mighty King of Haroun. There he waits with his bride from Fairy, the very image of the great Queen in the lands of Dyfed, the pale, ephemeral Lady Rhiannon, her mane of hair tumbling freely across her shoulder as she sits beside him. Pryderi runs to stand before his father, and he bowed to him.
Father, I bring you greeting.
Welcome, my son. You bring joy to my heart. Come. Pryderi ran to his father's arms, and they embraced warmly. After a deep moment of connection, Pwyll sent him to Rhiannon's arms with a smile. He was overjoyed at the light that he saw grow in her eyes as she enfolded the boy in her slender arms. Long had she seemed almost to wither away, and yet, when she embraced the boy, such love was upon her that she almost seemed to shine. Pendaran came to stand before them. He patiently smoothed his cloak over his arm as he watched Pryderi revel in his parents' love. He held himself tall and straight, aware that his news would not be easy to hear, aware that when all nobles fostered their children to another noble house, it was a source of pain as well as a source of joy. He watched the pale Rhiannon and thought of all the trials that she had suffered and of how frail she looked in this moment. Was she strong enough to bear this news? Pendaran thought to himself,
"The boy has been under our care and my tuition in this court for years, and yet now I must take him far away. How will the lady fare with the child she loves so distant? How will she fare with her heart's light in another's court?"
He cleared his throat and took a pace forward, drawing the eyes of the Prince of Haroun.
"My lord, as the winds change, the leaves on the stream often dance a wild jig whose pattern none can follow. The time has come for us to prepare for a new dance."
I saw this coming. I saw it in omens, in the trees and the leaves, old friend.
Speak plainly, Pendaran. My head can no longer puzzle out your druid riddles.
"The stream I speak of flows from the north, my lord. The kingdom of Gwynedd grows strong and waxes greatly under the guidance of the children of Llŷr. with Bran the Blessed as the High King of the Island of the Mighty.
Aye, this we know, Druid, and the High King has brought peace for us all.
And yet, as the stream crosses into Dyfed, the dancing leaves become strange travellers, merchants and priests, from over the seas bearing strange words.
I have heard that our High King, the Raven, has decreed that all beliefs and gods are welcome in our lands. Is this truth, Pendaran?
So it is, my lord. And as the strength and wisdom of Bran extends across the realm, it would be prudent to make new, strong bonds with the House of Clear, to ensure we have their protection and goodwill for the coming days.
He's talking about the bonds of fosterage, my husband, about sending our son away to the court of Bran, the High King, to be fostered as his son.
I'm to go away, but Mother...
Hush, boy.
Rhiannon's unbound hair dropped over her face as she leant forward to embrace Pryderi even more firmly. Pwyll sank back into his throne, his eyes narrowing with concentration as his gaze seemed to go through the old Druid and far away into the night. Up until now, the child had been fostered to Tirnon and to Pendaran for guidance, and they were easy to summon or to visit. On the other hand, this bond with Bran would ensure kinship and kindness between the north and the south, between Gwynedd and Dyfed. The mighty children of Llyr would be his kin, his family, and the High King would be another father to his son. It seemed such an obvious advantage, but Pryderi, his golden boy, would be so very far away, treading the path of his own destiny. Pwyll was finding that it was no easy thing to let the boy go so far away on his own, to let the boy be a man.
I have held council with the Druids of Gwynedd, my lord, and the High Council of Druids foresaw this arrangement long before the boy was ever born.
Then the High King has agreed, and it is all settled?
All apart from your agreement, Lord.
Then you must go with him, Pendaran. Report back to us on his health and his progress. Tell us how he is accepted in the court. You must take gifts to Llyr's children from Dyfed. I have something special in mind for my new sister to nurture. I've heard she cherishes all things.
I have heard that too, my lady. And it shall be done as you bid. If it be your will, I shall watch over him and keep him in mind of our ancestors and their ways, as well as the ways of the new God and his word.
Then so shall it be. Pryderi, are you ready for this new life journey, my boy?
I shall make you proud, Father, and visit as often as I can.
And so it was settled, and the fears and doubts that may have troubled their hearts remained hidden deep within. At the rise of the new moon, Pendaran and his charge left the halls of Arberth and headed north into the hills. As their horses crested the Brincerai, Pryderi watched the narrow cleft through which his father had emerged with his otherworld fairy mother. He wondered briefly whether the Shining Ones would emerge to reclaim him as one of their own before his adventure had even started. The night remained silent, however, and not a branch stirred. Apart from the gentle thud of their horses' hooves and the gentle rustle as a badger and her cubs rummaged through the undergrowth, nobody, not a living soul, noticed their passing. The evening shadows lengthened, becoming velvet soft with twilight as Pendaran called a halt for the day. Those of their kinsmen who went with them as guards looked after the ponies that carried their supplies and prepared to make camp for the night. They began setting a fire to blaze in the gathering dusk and to prepare a meal for Pendaran and his young charge. The company had been many days on the road, and many more were still to come. The wise old Druid had enjoyed teaching the boy about the trees, the plants and the animals that they encountered on their journey. He was pleased that young Pryderi was beginning to come to know and to feel, and even perhaps to love, the land of his birth. The smell of the damp forests of Mabinogion was strong in their nostrils, and Pryderi's belly grumbled as the succulent scent of his dinner gave his stomach deep voice. Pendaran sat with a wry smile under his beard as he watched the boy eat noisily and with obvious relish. He knew that the moment the shouting of the boy's stomach was quieted, then the questions would begin whirling in his young brain. He did not have long to wait.
What is the High King like, Pendaran? How much land does he rule? Tell me about his brothers and his sister. Why does Mother say their sister cherishes all things? How long will I stay in Gwynedd?
Slow down. Slow down, lad. Your questions are running faster than my lips can utter the answers you seek. I shall end up falling over my own tongue.
They both laughed then, and drank deeply from a water skin filled with crystal clear, breathtakingly cold water, collected from one of the many tumbling streams that they had passed.
Right. Tell me first your question, boy.
So, what is my father, Bran, the High King, like?
He is as tall as a mountain, as strong as a bear, and as wise as a druid. Does that answer your question?
No, I mean, tell me about him.
Well, he is a giant of a man, stronger than any I have seen. His hair and beard are raven black. That's why I think he was named Bran, which, as you know, means raven or crow. His heart is noble through and through, young Pryderi, and you would do well to learn from him about how to be a king. He has brought a true peace to the whole of the island of the mighty. I was with him when he was crowned High King on the White Hill in Llundain, and he was blessed by druids of the old gods and priests of the new god alike. Most of the proud men at his back grumbled at this, but Bran stood tall in front of them and all the people. He declared that all faiths would be welcome in his realm, as true peace could only come by understanding all that men believed.
So is that why you've started to teach our court at home about the White Christ as well as the old gods?
It is indeed, my young friend. It is also why these new priests have the same freedom of travel that we, as druids, have.
And is that what has made Bran such a good king, then?
No. It is far more than that. He and his shining kin came to us from fair Erin, the island of Emerald, and there he taught all of the old laws. His father taught him that as High King he would have to deal with the needs of all the other kings and their people who looked to him for support, much as your father Pwyll has the support of all those in Dyfed. Yet he learned so much while he was held captive in the chief city of the Eagle after their iron-clad warriors sought to conquer our lands.
I've heard that story told over ale cups in the...
No doubt when you should have been sleeping.
But what is the truth of the tale, Pendaran? What really happened? How did the High King of both the Island of the Mighty and the Emerald Isle come to be captured?
Well, that is a long tale, my young charge, and yet I see that you will not sleep until you have heard it. Many years ago in Erin, the most beautiful and precious flower in the line of Belai Mawr, Penarden, was fostered to the Irish High King, the one they called the Blood Crow, Bov the Red. Now Hwyl was a young man at the time.
In ancient days, and in a time remembered only by the storytellers, the Shining Ones walked abroad amongst men. They brought knowledge, wisdom, and the skills of craft from the other realms, and taught men the ways of the land. Known as the She, they were the children of the Mother of all, she who brings fertility to the land, blessed water from the skies, and life from the seas. Bearing mortal bodies is no easy feat for those from the Fey realms, as their minds, so used to freedom from the bounds of time and space, find themselves confined within a fleshy prison. For some of these mighty ones, this was a time for their light to shine even stronger, guiding those early men into the ways of nurturing the mother and her sacred land. and yet for others their light grew dark, and the muddy worlds of men made them hungry for power over those that walked on that land. Ever hungry, they emerged from the deep places, their hearts now dark and hideous, and strove with the other children of the Mother of all, whom some named Dawn or Danu. As her children did battle, and as her children died, the mother wept great sanguine tears on her green mantle. Their bodies, gore-ripped and lifeless, turned to dust, and their spirits returned to her breast for life anew. She watched as those that were beaten returned to their realms under the great waters to lick their wounds. She also watched some of her other children remember their light, being ever a voice for peace amongst men. After the great wars of the Shining Ones were over, the sons of men grew strong and mighty in their desire for the lush green fields of Erin, and many of the children of Danu began to retreat into the hollow hills. Those of the children of the land, sea and sky that remained, those still bearing the shining light over the moist grasslands, chose one of their number to be High King over them, and that kingship passed in its turn to Bov, the Blood Crow. At a time when many of the Shining Ones were venturing into the hollow hills, mighty Llŷr was a strong and much-loved king, of the line of the mighty Manannán, and like him, he was sea-born, and by turns both wise in his depths, light as the sea foam in his jests, and yet dangerous in his storms. When he heard of the decision of the kings of Erin to elect the Red Crow as the next king instead of himself, Llŷr's anger flashed like lightning over storm-tossed waves. He believed that now was the time for one of the sea-born of the blood of Manannán to be High King over the Emerald Isle. However, Bov was a wise king. Although his advisors were urging him to punish Llŷr for refusing to bend the knee, Bov had long been prepared. Strong and wise, the Blooded Crow had for many years had an arrangement with Llŷr's father, Bran ap Cerrig, to offer Llŷr one of his foster daughters as wife to strengthen the bonds between them. So he waited for when the time was right and the young Llŷr had grown to manhood. At the same time as Llŷr came into his own, Bov's foster daughters were of age, and a marriage could be considered. So he sent this offer of a marriage bond to the angry Llŷr, who considered it well. Unknown to Llŷr, the High King had taken to foster one of the princesses from the royal house of Dawn from Inciting, the island of the mighty. And so Llŷr had climbed the massive mountain of the women where Bov had his done, still unsure of what his choice would be: peace or war. He was feasted, sung to, given many mead horns at the dun, and as the midnight oils grew flickeringly low, Bov bade his 3 daughters enter. Llŷr was offered his choice of these fair she-maidens. His gaze fell upon the fair Welsh maid with such an unexpected softness, tenderness and desire that his heart seemed to stop beating within his chest. Before his mouth could open, before his mind could recognise it, his heart was declaring its love for the young Welsh maid, Pendaran, a love that would never leave his breast and never fail to warm her heart in all the years that their story wove itself through. It is not known whether Llŷr thought that this arranged marriage would bind the house of Llŷr with the house of Dawn, or bind the line of the Seaborn with the line of Beli Mawr, the Great Belly, and would one day perhaps bring him kingship over the 2 islands. But it is known, however, that when Llŷr chose the clever and quick-witted maid Pendaran, the most fair damsel on both islands, for his future bride, the two fell deeply in love, and never was a match more blessed by the gods. Although Llŷr's knowledge of the Welsh tongue was faltering, the Gaelic fell from the beautiful lips of the bright Pendaran in such rich words of poetry and song that Llŷr loved her even more deeply, and he was happy beyond mortal understanding. This dark-haired beauty with stunning green eyes brought a fire to Llŷr's dun whenever she would visit from the island of the mighty, or Llŷr met her in the great halls of Bov, the Blooded Crow. The Druids of the 2 islands were deeply pleased, for they could see the strands of destiny grow ever more entwined as these 2 spoke deeply together, and spent more and more time together in the fields and woodlands of lush Erin. Penarvin spent many of her days eagerly awaiting the arrival of the young strong Llŷr, her charming witty warrior whose smile fiercely warmed her whole body, whose laughter made her eyes shine, and whose tears silently fell whenever her own tumbled over her cheeks. Their love was strong and fire-bright, and caressed them both frequently with the consuming flames of desire. And before long, the gods blessed Penarvin and Llŷr with the birth of their firstborn son. She felt the blood of the sea-born swell like a high tide within the babe, and they named him Mabinogion. It was hard for the boy to learn the ways of war and kingship, for he was fey-touched, and ever his heart yearned for the wild places, and his grey-blue eyes longed for the wind-swept shores. 10 years passed, and the belly of the most fair Penarvin was once more blessed with child. She could see that Llŷr was overjoyed when she delivered him beautiful twin boys. Both boys grew fast and strong, and had a shock of thick raven-dark hair. The first boy she named Bran, and saw with a mother's understanding how her beloved Llŷr found it easy to teach the boy the arts of kingship and the way of the warrior. The second boy wanted to better understand the new gods, and was fostered to a noble family who worshipped them. It's said that as he grew older he became a priest, but his feet and his fate took him out of our tale at a very early age. Llŷr obviously doted on Bran, his raven-haired son. He could see that this boy understood what it was to look after the land and its peoples. He showed much more interest in the arts of governance than his elder brother Mabinogion, who ever had one eye on the mortals and one eye on the shining ones. Penarvin knew that Llŷr loved their eldest son well, but she also knew that the two boys would walk different paths. Llŷr was not finding it easy to understand the choices that Mabinogion made, for although many were making the decision to return to the Hollow Hills, many still wished to dwell on Erin's fertile breast, Llŷr not the least among them. It was obvious that Bran was destined to share his father's love for the land and his kingdom. His firstborn may not choose to be king after him, but Bran almost surely would. Their hearts were full to overflowing, and yet, still after another 10 cycles of the sun, the mother saw fit to bless her family with another child. This time, a girl child, also raven-black of hair and yet bright blue of eye, whose laugh brought warmth and gladness to all those around her. As the growing young girl rushed about the household, there was not one trouble or hurt she did not try to comfort, and soon they named her Fionnuala, or Pure Shoulder, for her shoulder was always ready and tender in its support of young and old alike. Love poured from both Penarvin and Llŷr, like the torrents of a rushing mountain fall, and never was there man, fey, or god as happy in his gifts as the young king. Eagerly Llŷr waited for the time of their marriage, when his whole family would be forever at his side on the Emerald Isle, and his joy would be complete. Young Bran had even come into his manhood, and had been blessed with a son of his own by Enginiais, one of the sisters of Caswallon of the line of the Great Beli. He had met the beautiful maiden when visiting his mother in the court of Beli Mawr in Pryderi, and the gods would see fit to bless them with much fruitfulness in the years to come. And so it was that in time Llŷr came into his inheritance, and took up residence on the White Hill of Erin, the hill of the Great White Field. Messengers were sent to Penarvin, and gladly she prepared to sail over to Erin with her retinue to be at Llŷr's side for the rest of her life. Her overwhelming joy was tinged with sadness at the thought of leaving her family behind on the Island of the Mighty, although she knew that after the wedding they would travel back to the shores of Pryderi to celebrate once more with her own people. Her ships docked, and she stepped onto the green strand above the churning waters with all of her ladies. Princes, kings, and queens had travelled with her to be at this fasting of hands, for all knew that this was to be a bond between the two islands, and this couple could sway the destinies of both islands. Penarvin looked up at the faces of the ranks of mounted nobles above her on the top of the bank, scanning them for the tall and piercing gaze of Llŷr, her king, her man, her children's father, and soon to be her husband. Their eyes met, locked, and his intent gaze warmed her with a fierce glow of joy, passion and love. In our next episode, the great King Clear gets married and he manages to discover an enemy.
So we'll look forward to the wedding.
Yeah, everyone loves a wedding.
Everyone loves a wedding. So before we start celebrating, let's have some listener feedback.
We heard from Renee from Australia, who left us a lovely voice message from our website.
Hi, Gary and Ruth. My name's Renee and I'm from Australia. And I just started listening to your podcast, the Celtic Myth Podshow. And I just wanted to say I absolutely love it. And I'm hoping that I can listen to all of them and get back up to speed and where you're currently up to. I've always had a big interest in mythology, especially Norse and Germanic mythology. And I thought, oh, why not? I'll just go to Celtic as well. And I'm just loving it. I find it so fascinating. I love looking at the stories and seeing how stories from Celtic mythology have influenced current literature and thinking. I can't wait to keep listening. Thanks so much for running it. I love it. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for your super feedback, Renee. I hope you've managed to catch up with all the shows now, and we really hope you enjoyed them.
We do, and we hope you enjoy the story of Branwen.
Before we leave you with our final song, let's hear a promo for a fascinating podcast.
Yes, let's listen to the promo for Inciting a Riot.
Hey there, Firelight here from Inciting a Riot, a podcast currently celebrating 10 years of production. It's a show all about encouraging conversation and critical thought in all areas of life, from walking a pagan path to understanding how our society and the world around us function. So no topic is off limits. I've talked to a werewolf, a geophysicist, a mom living at the Israeli-Palestinian border, and more than one expert on fairies. I never know what the next episode's conversation is going to bring, and that's my favorite thing about doing this show. Consider downloading Inciting a Riot on Apple Podcasts, or whichever service you use. Hey, if you do, you might win the lottery. I mean, you might not, but downloading the show can't hurt, right? To join the riot, visit incitingariot.com. See you there.
Thank you for your promo, Firelight. Firelight and I were having a discussion how promos were wonderful and the podcasting community could support each other. It was a wonderful way of working. And so we've decided to bring it back. So on our show, you'll find a promo for a podcast on every episode. And we'll be helping to promote the brightest and the best podcasts out there. So do make sure you listen to the promos.
Yeah, they're exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. And to finish off our show, let's have a listen to a beautiful track from George Nicholas and Kernunos Rising.
Yes, it's called Dancing in Nature, and it's from his album Inspiration.
And I walked over the moor. I walked and I'm breathless like never before. Up to the mountains and down to the dale, through frost and high winds and even through hail. Sea and sky, all in between, liminal nature seen and unseen, and the spirits abound in all things we see. We're dancing in nature, in you and in me, walking in nature, springtime or fall, traversing hilltops where eagles call, watching salmon battle that stream, returning once more to life's golden dream. Shadow of winter, warm storm, summer light. I walk through the seasons, be it day or at night. And the light of the full moon, the ghost of the owl, the silence of fenland disturbed by the fowl. Till dawn, mist starts to clear, watching the badgers and foxes and deer. So quiet I am waiting, new day is born. My soul becomes one with the colours of dawn. Communing with nature, no words can explain. Grace in the sun like the snow and the rain. Immersed in the ocean, the river or stream. Be lost in the moment, be lost in the dream. I walked and I walked by lakeside and glen. I sat by the graves of warrior men. Gone are the kingdoms, paid for by blood. Their stories still told in the ashes and mud. Sea sky, all in between, liminal nature seen and unseen, and spirits abound in all things we see, dancing in nature in you and in me. We're dancing in nature in you and in me. We're dancing in nature in you and in me.
That was George Nicholas and Cernunnos Rising with their superb track Dancing in Nature.
You can find out where to find his album in the show notes at celticmythpodshow.com/fostering.
Well, that really is the end of our show now. So...
Before we go, we'd like to wish you many blessings.
And see you in our next episode.
Hwyl fawr.
You have been listening to the Celtic Myth Podshow. If you enjoyed listening to the show, please come and support us at Patreon at patreon.com/Celtic Myth Show. We hope you'll stay tuned for the next episode. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at celticmythshow@gmail.com or come and chat to us on social media. All of the links are available on the Contact Us page on our website at celticmythpodshow.com. We'd also like to send out a big shout of thanks to Coolan's Hounds for our theme music, available at sfhounds.com. This show is a Celtic Myth Show production.